Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Windows Central, where we answer the questions you ask us about Microsoft Surface Windows or tech in general. This week we'll be talking about a Surface Laptop 5, the future of Surface, and is there going to be a Sun Valley 3 for Windows 11, and what could be in it? All that and more. Stay tuned. All right, first up, I think this question is perfect for Zach since he loves Windows 11 so much. What is the predictions for the future of Sun Valley 3, basically fixes and new features, which would also be known as 23H2? Now, mind you, we're about to hit 22H2, so we're really looking to the future here, Zach. What are you hearing, if anything, about a Sun Valley 3?
So yeah, Sun Valley 3 is something Microsoft is working on. In fact, I think there were references shown in a recent Microsoft live stream somewhere. Sun Valley 3 is the next release of Windows 11 after the upcoming one this year. And it's still early days, really, for what Sun Valley 3 could entail. I know Microsoft has an idea as to what Sun Valley 3 will include, but whether or not that actually ships always remains to be seen. So far, I've not heard too much, a few whispers here and there. You know, you've seen with Sun Valley 2, which is 22H2, a surprising focus on tablets with this release. I hear that's going to continue into 23H2, which is Sun Valley 3. More touch improvements, perhaps almost maybe even a dedicated UI for tablets at some point. Of course, this could be pushed back at any point, so it's not guaranteed for Sun Valley 3, but this is stuff they're thinking about. Continued improvements to the consistency of the UI as well. System-wide dark mode, I think, is likely for Sun Valley 3. That was something they envisioned for Sun Valley 1 and didn't ship. It doesn't appear to be shipping with Sun Valley 2, so hopefully it shows up with Sun Valley 3. But I think the question really is, what's beyond the Sun Valleys? Will there be a Windows 12, for example? I assume if they're codenaming this Sun Valley 3, it will still be a Windows 11 update. But will there come a point where we move on from Sun Valley and we start working on something else? We don't know at this point. It's early days. But a Windows 12, I think, is possible at some point in the future, but it doesn't look like next year is going to be that year.
Yeah, there's all sorts of questions here with, how Windows develops. You and I have argued before that there's only so much stuff you can jam into an operating system before it just becomes cluttered and you're just creating features for the sake of features. And, we saw this with Windows 10, right? They all had initial releases and themes around them, but eventually it's like, all right, now what? I don't want to say luckily the pandemic happened, but obviously that changed a lot to do with how we are using computing right now in 2022, and that's sort of given a new initiative for Windows 11 and breathed new life into how we're using these computers. Will there be another motivating factor like that for what would be a Windows 12? I'm not sure. You mentioned a lot about tablets. I'm curious, of course, about foldables, which I think by 2023 is going to be a much bigger discussion topic for us. We're going to see a few this year, but it'll be bigger in 2023. What will Microsoft bring around those form factors? Also, will we see more form factors coming to PCs? That I don't know, but all that could influence the future of Windows 11 or Windows 12.
Yeah, I definitely think the stuff I'm hearing around tablets does also apply to foldables. They basically are technically the same category after all. Well, primary input being touch, of course. Lots of touch improvements I hear are on the way for Sun Valley 3. I've also heard things like just improving how Windows talks with Android. There's a big sort of push with your phone these last couple of years, and I hear that's going to continue, perhaps with even some built-in stuff to the OS that sort of enhance your experience going from PC to your phone. Obviously, there's no Windows Phone anymore, so the only real platform Microsoft can adopt for that is Android. So we will see where that goes as well. But yeah, there's lots in store for the Sun Valleys that are up and coming, and I'm pretty excited. Right, moving right along. Next question. Looking to upgrade my original Surface laptop. When can we expect Laptop 5, and will there be a redesign?
So this is a really good question because you were anticipating Surface Laptop 5 for the fall, which is traditionally when Microsoft does its sort of big releases and big announcements. However, with 12th Gen now hitting the market, it may come before then. Then again, I'm not really so sure, right? Because I know something like the Dell XPS 13 Plus was supposed to launch a little bit in March. Now I'm hearing late April. Why would that be? Does Dell all of a sudden hate that laptop? No, of course not. It's just that there's going to be constraints on a brand new chip hitting the market in terms of supply. And there's only so many that can be created. It's a brand new process that they're using. And all this can affect how Microsoft launches Surface Laptop 5. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something in summertime, which would be kind of random, but they could do that since it would be a refresh. but they may just hold it to the fall until they can build up enough stock to make the launch actually worthwhile. Now, as to what would be in Surface Laptop 5, I'm not expecting a redesign, and I love Surface Laptop. I think it's one of my favorite devices to use. I still use Surface Laptop 4 quite frequently. I use the 13.5-inch version, which is the one I prefer, mostly because of Alcantara. Now, we did see alleged specs leak of Surface Laptop 5, and there's nothing really too crazy about it. I believe they added an extra port for Thunderbolt 4, which would be on the Intel version. The AMD would get USB 4.0, since AMD chipsets have a tough time getting Thunderbolt, but still, USB 4 does narrow the gap between that and Thunderbolt, so it should be pretty good. At least it'll be an improvement over what has already shipped with Surface Laptop 4. We could also expect, of course, Intel 12th gen processors, like definitely the P series. I couldn't imagine they would use the U series. The P is definitely more powerful, so you should get a nice performance boost. You should also get those new Iris Xe graphics, maybe Intel Arc graphics in the 15-inch. I could definitely see that. And then when it comes to the display, 120 Hz variable refresh rate, I think is definitely on the cards here as well. They would still keep the Alcantara options for the 13-inch version, but not for 15. There would still be options for Intel and AMD. AMD, of course, would go to the AMD Ryzen 6000 series. And that's going to be really fun to put up against the Intel one to see which one is better. I do expect AMD to possibly beat out Intel for battery life this round, whereas before, they kind of sometimes did, but it was only because AMD throttled its processor, or I should say OEMs throttled the processor so much while in battery life that they were able to get better battery at a cost of, crimping the processor, the GPU, and even the SSD. So hopefully we won't see that this time. Zach, are you hearing anything different for Surface Laptop 5 that I may have missed?
No, I think you've got it right on the head there. I will say about when to expect it, I do think that if Microsoft could, they would get it out as soon as possible, but because of the chip shortage and the component shortage, I am hearing things have been pushed back. So Surface Laptop 5 is looking more likely for the second half of this year, where usually it would have been sort of the first half. I think Surface Laptop 4 was the first half of 2021, was it? I can't remember actually.
It was a little while ago, but yeah, I mean, outside of modest improvements, maybe, tweak the camera a little bit. There's not a whole lot that needs to be done with Surface Laptop 5 to make it a hit. I'm very excited about this one, though. I think 12th gen and AMD Ryzen 6000, it's going to be kind of a game changer in terms of performance for these devices. Slightly better battery life. It should be a pretty good release. I'm very excited about it. Hopefully, we'll hear more in the coming months. All right, next up, speaking of touch and Surface, will there be a touch-first Surface device this year to take advantage of the new touch features in Sun Valley 2? Zach, are you hearing anything on this front?
So I believe we're expecting another Surface Pro this year, a Surface Pro 9, I guess they might call it. And we're also expecting a new Surface Pro X. The last sort of couple of refreshes of the Surface Pro X line have been relatively minor. This year, we're expecting quite a big upgrade for the Surface Pro X. Maybe not in the design area, but certainly in the silicon department. And that's going to be a big deal. We're sort of expecting, 120 Hz display, 5G, and a processor based on the Snapdragon 8cx Gen 3. That's going to be a pretty cool Windows tablet when it launches this fall. And that should launch with Sun Valley 2 pre-installed. Of course, the Surface Pro 9 likely to look very similar to the Surface Pro 8, but with a 12th gen Intel chip on the inside. We're not too sure what else will be new with the Surface Pro 9, but I'm expecting that to be a relatively minor update. But beyond that, perhaps in the spring of next year, we're also expecting a Surface Go refresh. The Surface Go 3 came out at the tail end of last year, so that would be a sort of prime time for a refresh of that device. Perhaps maybe with ARM finally. That's kind of sort of in the rumor mill internally right now. So that could be an interesting device as well, and that will of course ship with Sun Valley 2 because it's launching in the spring. But yes, we are expecting some new Surface devices that will launch with Sun Valley 2 to be sort of touch-first, tablet-focused devices. Finally, what is the future of Surface now that Surface Neo is cancelled? Go on, Dan, I think you should take this one.
Really good question. Obviously, Neo was a fascinating device. I still had questions about usability. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looked cool, it felt amazing, but I think between the price and the usability, there were questions about how transformative it really would be. What we are seeing in the industry, of course, is shifting to foldable displays. This is that partnership between Samsung, Intel, and Microsoft and OEM partners, often referred to as Project Horseshoe Bend. So we're going to start to see more devices like that. I'm not sure which one is better. Personally, I really liked Surface Neo's concept. especially the book thing, but it was a heavy device. You wouldn't really want to hold this as a book for too long, I think, unless you go to the gym frequently. But I still would like to sort of see that device in the works. What we saw between the first foldable PC, the Lenovo X1 Fold, was around, I believe, 12 inches in size, total screen, 12 to 13 inches. And when it folded, it was pretty tiny. It was like a little Surface Go, but even a little bit smaller. What you're seeing with this next gen foldables, much bigger. We're going to start to see 16 to 17 inch devices. That means when they fold in half and you drop in the physical keyboard on top, it's going to be like a 13 to 14 inch laptop. It's going to be very familiar and it's going to be a lot more flexible. So that's where we're going to see. Would Microsoft then take Surface Neo and blow it up to be even bigger? I don't know, because that much glass, unless they switched out materials, it'd be a pretty heavy device. That is one option I could see them going down, though. In terms of other devices, this gets into an interesting problem, right? They're not going to just create a device just for the sake of creating a device unless they really believe in the form factor being unique. And if you look at the lineup right now, Surface Pro X you just mentioned, that's going to get a big update this year. It's one of my favorite devices I'm looking forward to. You have Surface Pro 9 will be a nice refinement, what's already an excellent device. You have the new Surface Laptop Studio, which is still not really launched globally yet. They still got to push it out to other markets, which is why we probably won't see a refresh for that until 2023 at the earliest. And then you have Surface Go, Surface Studio, which does need a refresh. But if you look at the entire lineup, I'm not sure what else, and she also mentioned Surface Duo 3 would be coming as well. I'm not sure what else they would need to create that would be a new form factor that would really drive innovation that is not a gimmick, right? That's the thing with Surface. They try not to create things that are gimmicks, but instead allow you to do something you weren't allowed to do before with a computer. That is usually the mantra behind these creations. Surface Laptop being the exception, although they want to set the standard of what a laptop could be, just like Surface Laptop SE was to set the standard for what education laptops should be. So I don't know. Obviously, they're playing around with different concepts. We have seen a patent for a 3-screened device that folds up. Some of the screens, would be foldable, I think, not necessarily hinged, or they may be hinged. And this isn't a radical idea. Samsung has something very similar in the works that they've shown publicly. So this idea would be an actual full screen tablet, but then you can fold half of it and you basically get a dual screen device, and then you can fold it once more and get a single screen device, which if you think about it really does open up the doors for much more flexibility and usability. So I could see them trying to do that at some point. Like I said, Samsung is already clearly thinking down those lines. I know it's a weird concept, but if you get it thin enough, you really could then have something akin to a full-size Surface that then folds down to a single screen phone or goes to a dual screen phone for multitasking. That's really interesting. And if you think that idea is crazy, have you not seen Westworld? That is literally the device that they made in Westworld that everybody was carrying around in their back pocket. And I really do believe that, some designers see that stuff and be like, we should try to approximate something like that. Why not have a computer that can basically adjust to any scenario you're in? I think that's the long-term goal. If and when we'll see that, I have no idea. Zach, you have any thoughts on this?
I think the next sort of thing we'll see from Surface is a single screen foldable device, whether that be a phone or a PC sized device. I'm not too sure, but I do know that they are experimenting with single screen foldable PCs or devices internally. And that's obvious, right? We're seeing that more and more in the tech space at the moment. So it would be weird for Microsoft to sort of not sort of take a look at that and at least experiment with it. But yeah, you're right. Every year hasn't been a hit year for Surface in regards to new form factors. We had the 2-in-1 in 2012. Then in 2015 we had the laptop that can be a tablet. 2016 was the Surface Studio, which is an all-in-one that turns into a draft board. Then we didn't really get anything again until 2019 with the Surface Duo and Surface Neo. Of course, the Surface Neo never shipped, but the dual screen idea did in the form of the Duo. And that's really the last we sort of had from in regards to sort of form factor innovation. I guess the Laptop Studio can sort of be counted as something like that, but that's already sort of been done before, so maybe not. But yeah, I definitely think foldable, sort of a foldable Surface Pro maybe will become sort of the next thing. I don't know if they'll call it Surface Pro, maybe they'll call it something else, but a foldable sort of 13-inch or 15-inch or whatever size it is tablet that can also be a laptop, I think is probably next on their agenda. That's just a complete guess, though, from me.
I think it's probably something that they would be working on. There is a rumor Apple is working on, I believe, a 20-inch foldable. Right. So, again, the industry is moving towards this. We're going to see much more of this. It's about creating the materials and the technology. Samsung and LG are behind creating a lot of this, the display technology. And as the price comes down and more devices come out, we'll start to see it more widely adopted. It's going to be fun to watch. It would make sense to see Microsoft jump into the actual foldable display territory just because they need to optimize, in theory, Windows 11 for that form factor, which its partners are going to be starting to widely adopt. So I don't know. I think these are all good points. I'm really looking forward for a tri-fold device, but I think that probably is still a few years out. Other than that, the only other category I'd love to see them enter in, but it's a tough one, would be wearables. I'm a big fan. I wear an Oura Ring. They just hit 1 million sales of this. I think this is really interesting technology, but it's already here, right? What would Microsoft do? Same thing with smartwatches, already done to death. So what could they do in that category? They have to be thinking about it. They have to have concepts, but we don't have any information that suggests that they have anything imminent that's going to release. But then again, there's a lot we don't know about Surface. So that's one area I'd like to see them go into, and maybe they will. All right, so that does it for this episode of Ask Windows Central. Remember, if you have a question, you can hit myself up on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino or Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Make sure you ask those questions. You can use the hashtag AskWindowsCentral to get our attention. You can also drop us an email. Just send it to daniel@windowscentral.com. Use the hashtag AskWindowsCentral in the subject line to make sure I get it. Other than that, we'll see you on the next episode. And don't forget to join our podcast every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel. As always, thanks for listening in. Take care, everyone.